Hi, everyone. I'm James Frazee. You might know me as the voice at the top of the Gear Club episodes letting you know what the show is going to be about, but I am also a producer on the show, and now, it seems, a host. John and Stuart are busy guys, so I have been thrust from the editing room and into the big time to host this new format that we came up with called Ketchups. We're bringing back previous guests to talk to them about what they've been up to since their episode aired, and to ask the all-important question, why did you ever agree to do this in the first place? Let's get started. Mastering engineer extraordinaire Greg Calbi is a dear friend and was our guest on Gear Club episode number 2, way back in January of 2017. Over the last 50 years, Greg has mastered a seemingly endless list of albums across every genre of music, and it's almost a certainty he's had a hand in making one of your favorite records. In this episode, Greg and I got to chat about Sterling Sound moving from Manhattan to its new facility in Edgewater, New Jersey, his workflow from converters to compressors to clients, and the unique changes, challenges, and expectations of modern mastering. We interviewed you in 2016, 2017.
Wow, it's like more than 5 years ago.
Yeah, so a lot has changed. You're in a new facility now.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we moved here 5 years ago, so maybe we weren't even here yet. Maybe we weren't in Edgewater, but
you weren't. You were still in the in the Chelsea.
Yeah, I mean, it was I just kind of been talking about this over the last couple of weeks and realizing that when we came to Edgewater, Uber was not really a factor. It was kind of just buzzing around. It was available, but it wasn't what it is now, which is basically everybody's form of transportation in the New York, New Jersey area besides their own automobile, right?
Yeah, sure.
So when we moved here, it was a major factor. Now we're up near the Washington Bridge, right? So so you don't have Uber, you got to either take a taxi if you're in the city or in Brooklyn, you got to take an expensive taxi cab, pay double fare to go back and forth, or go to Port Authority, take the bus up River Road. I mean, it's a trek.
Right.
It's a real trek, and
Yeah.
it was really a concern. When we first looked to move to New Jersey, we were trying to stay closer to Hoboken, Jersey City with the path.
Yeah, sure.
But it was still a factor. Like, are people really from going to the Chelsea market every day, they're really going to be interested in going to New Jersey, or is this going to affect our business? So it was a concern. Now, as it turned out, over the last couple of years, Uber has become
ubiquitous.
Yeah. It is. I mean, it's everybody's taking Uber everywhere. You travel any city around the world now. To have an Uber, you can't get lost. You don't have to ask for directions. You don't have to sit and wait at a taxi stand. I mean, it's phenomenal. As the labor issue is another whole issue, but as far as convenience, very similar to streaming audio. The convenience is crazy. Whether people gets paid fairly, that's another issue. But it doesn't keep people from. People don't boycott Uber because of that. They take it anyway. So
no, they keep taking it.
So we have benefited. It's been a huge benefit. But at the same time, because of the people sending files and mastering being less attended than it used to be, which is really in my world, kind of the biggest difference is that we do so much work by ourselves, and then add a pandemic onto that where we had 2 years where people weren't even allowed in the studio. I think a lot of people got used to working alone, and a lot of clients got used to the same thing that they got used to in mixing, which is the engineer would do the mixes and send them, and then send notes, and then back and forth, rather than sitting there all day in the control room. So things happening kind of all at once, different factors, all of them adding up to a very lucky for us that we're able to survive the rent situation in New York for as long as we could, then move to Jersey and be able to buy a building and have the security of owning the building, and people are coming and sending files. So from a business standpoint, that's been a really great thing. And for me personally, because I live in Montclair, not having to go through the tunnel every day back and forth, and not having to spend $50 a day to park, in my opinion, it's really extending my career, because it's really not. It's just has taken so much of the stress away from the day to day, and I just feel it. I get home. Predictably can get home from work every night and have time with my wife and time to relax and watch sports and everything. I mean, it was I commuted to New York for about 37, 38 years, so it was pretty intense.
Yeah.
On a lot of different levels.
But now that the pandemic's over, you're finding that anybody who wants to attend does. I mean, nobody's saying, well, I'm not going to attend because it's in Edgewater.
We know, we never get that. And actually, we get the reverse, because actually from from upstate New York or any place in Westchester, they don't have to go into the city. I mean, people
sure.
really don't. People don't want to go into the city unless they have to these days. I mean, this is the vibe that we're getting. There's kind of been a real decentralization of New York City, I think. People want to know what's behind this, the curtain in mastering, and a lot of them come in and they've never been. They might have made 2 or 3 albums. I had somebody recently who had her 4th album. It was her 4th album. She had never been in any of her mastering sessions. And she was really into it, and she was really inquisitive in the right way, and she learned a lot, and she called me and said it was an invaluable lesson in what we do, and I think I'm good at describing it. I'm probably better at describing it than I am at actually doing it these days, but
I don't believe that for a second.
I'm happy to do it when people have the right attitude, and it's I'm able to when people do visit. Sometimes students come up. I've met a couple of kids who came up, and I'm always willing to spend an hour or two. Sometimes I could tell in the first 15 minutes that it's not going to be interesting. Some people don't listen the way we listen, or don't have the interest or the aptitude. The aptitude is really the wrong word. They just don't. They're listening to music in a different way. But you catch somebody who really listens to what we listen to. And it's fine if people don't hear. A lot of times, great musicians here, and I'm going back and forth. Number one, number two, number one, number two. They go like, I don't hear the difference. I've learned over the years, everybody listens a different way, and you respect all the different ways they do. And the only thing that I don't like is when it becomes what I call like the listening Olympics. There's the guys that's like, oh, did you hear Ringo farted in the drum fill in Octopus's Garden or something? It's like, oh, no, I didn't hear that. Well, go back, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, that's a good way to put it, because that's and that's not the thing that matters either, right?
No.
But let me ask you a little more about the new, well, not so new now, but I mean the new Sterling facility. You had these new rooms built, right? Yeah, and you changed speakers.
Yeah, the monitor environment is completely different.
Yeah, how did you deal with that, going from, because you had your Proax for like 15 years or something, right?
I had them all from, I actually brought them. Yeah, I had them for more than 25 years or so. But I knew them inside and out. Right. As it turns out, my clients who've been in this room, the new room, feel that this room is more familiar to them, to their ear, to what they what they listen to. The other room, I guess people a lot of times wouldn't tell me that, but they felt that the other room was kind of like they got a little confused when they got in there, which was okay. I mean, but the point about that room, it was really a hi-fi system. It was hi-fi speakers. They were towers, big towers, like almost 6 feet tall.
Yeah, no, they were as big as a person. Yeah,
they were big, and they were just buttery. I mean, they were prettier. These are not pretty. These are very, very specific and very sterile.
Well, now you have ATCs, right?
ATCs, yeah. The ATCs with, kind of a customized setup with a subwoofer and everything. And
are they softened? They're in the wall. Yeah, they're
in the wall, but there's glass. Have you been over here?
I have not. I'd love to.
You see, there's like a glass.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so there's indirect light, and there's like a whole setup that he did.
Wow.
To with the glass, and glass is always a challenge. But the room is very flat, and it's super flat. But it's just not. It's not pretty. Like, great stuff sounds amazing, but you really learn after a while that a lot of stuff is not that great. I mean, it's good, but to really go to that next thing, I think the other speed, the Proax had a way. They were I just used the word buttery. I mean, they were softer on the ears. The top end was a little bit more. It probably was splashier and higher, and. So it was and probably the biggest difference was the bottom on these goes much lower than what I was getting for all those years. And for some reason, and I have theories about it, for some reason people are mixing now with so much bottom. Yep. I mean, we all talk. I mean, the stuff that comes in here is like, it's just mind-boggling, and you just don't know if people like a lot of bottom or if they're hearing it or not hearing it. It's a very delicate. Yeah. It's a very delicate thing to try to figure out how to take it away, but leave enough of it so that those that want big bottom. I've actually moved to putting records out into the world with more bottom. I don't know. I just think that the phone and the earbud thing, although this is not, you don't master for those things, but I think there's enough of that. There's enough, and certain headphones, there's enough of that if you have a little extra bottom, the record's going to sound a little bit bigger. If you have too much bottom, on a beautiful, the old days with the receiver and the two speakers and everything.
Yeah.
The boominess doesn't sound good in the car. I think people get used to a lot of bottom, and I don't like to
Yeah.
I don't like to take too much of bottom away. I know how difficult it is for engineers to get good bass drum sound and good bass sound. It's the biggest challenge. You're
Sure.
an engineer. You know what I'm talking about. I always feel like I don't want to take away what somebody's worked really hard on, but I also I don't want the mix to be overwhelmed by the bottom, so you can't hear the action. And I'm not a big fan of big bass drum. Between the super bottom of the kick drum and the crazy amount of cymbals and everything, those are the two things that drive me crazy. I think they're a big distraction to music.
Yeah, no, cymbals are tough.
Cymbals are really tough. You can't change the way a guy's playing. I mean, there was one producer that I worked with who told me that I just go into the drum room. I say don't hit it on this part of the cymbal, hit it over here. I said, really? If I was a drummer, I'd tell you go fuck yourself.
Yeah. Anytime I tell a drummer, can you play differently than how you're used to? It's like A, they don't like it, but B, they can't really, it kills their vibe. So yeah,
totally.
I don't
even know how we would do that, but I mean. That's one of the fun things about this job is that when I've never recorded anything, but I've talked to people about recording for so many years, so I kind of know all the answers, but
Sure.
it's just so curious when I hear stuff, and how you got that sound, or what is that, or what happened there.
Yeah.
I mean, we have time, we have a lot of conversation time
Sure.
in these sessions because I don't work in the box. When you work in the box, you can just kind of come up with a setting and then just render it. It takes 2 seconds, but I have to dump everything in real time. I have to dump it
Of
across
course.
from analog, into my computer, and so it's a 3.5, 4 minute song. So when you're sitting there for 4 minutes, you start talking about your kids and about their kids, and
Yeah.
that's how I've gotten to know people in our business over all these years, and I love it. I love when they come in.
You're also like one of the most personable mastering engineers that I've ever met. I mean, you have you have a great vibe. You make people very comfortable.
Thank you. I'm comfortable in this role. I've taken to be comfortable with it.
So you said earlier you've never recorded anything. Is that actually true?
Well, no, I was an assistant, but I never did a record on my own. I mean, I did when I was a studio assistant at Record Plant. I had about a year. I had about 2 years where I would I would assist on the remote truck once in a while. That wasn't technical. That was just hauling wires, putting audience mics up, driving the truck.
With Hewitt.
Cleaning up the stage, that kind of stuff. Before you, I was on the truck before you. I remember Hewitt's first day actually very clearly.
Wow.
Because I was on the old truck, Cooster's truck, what became Cooster's truck. I was on that truck, and I remember David walked up. The reason I remember, he walked up 44th Street. And he was a real hippie guy. He had a really long hippie hair, and he just looked like, I said, basically my thing was, who the fuck is this guy? And he was friends with Frank Eubank, the guy that ran the truck. So that was David's very first day on the truck, and I thought he really knew it, but he didn't know jack shit either when he started. He just came out of the blue. So I did that, and then I would be in the studio and basically setting up, what they call the general job, which was, we had one, two one-ups at 3 studios, so you had to basically clean them up, make sure razor blades were new, that kind of stuff. China markers, make everything kind of neat. And then during the sessions, I would just, before there was no automation on the multi-track, so you had to kind of rewind. You had to sit there and rewind and mark it up with the China marker. Old days.
Tape op. Yeah.
Yeah, tape op. So that's what I was doing for a couple of years. But then I started helping out in the cutting room because my buddy was up in the cutting room and he was learning also while he was working. So I was kind of running around. And I remember I did I think I did twice. I might have done some rough mixes, because the engineer left and said, "Do me a favor, just do some balances and just send these guys roughs." So I think I did that maybe twice.
Okay.
But I never had guys go in a room and just say, "Okay, you guys play. I'm going to put the mics up and record." I never did that ever. So it's all by osmosis that I did it. But that's why I like coming over to your place and I'm watching you work. Doing all that comping the other day. That was killer. You're so fast. I couldn't believe how quickly. And the tuning was The tuning was just outrageous. I mean, just to see that and to do it so elegantly and so I couldn't hear any artifacts at all. Maybe you guys tuned to hear that, but. Wow.
Well, you can, but if you tune it and you hear that it's tuned, it's like if you hear the edit, it's not a good edit.
Yeah.
If you hear the tuning, it's not good tuning. So
yeah.
But yeah, thanks, man, and it's great having you always.
Well,
to stop by whenever. We love it.
Okay.
We love it.
super fun.
So because I'm very curious with Sterling, what was the learning curve like going from one room, one set of speakers to this whole other thing?
What I had to do was pretty much a ton of A/Bing with every project. Another one, first of all, I knew that because I didn't know the speakers 100%, I had to be very conservative with what I was doing. I would rather do much less than needed than do too much.
Yeah.
The low end I would say it took me, 6 months by the time I would really be up to speed. Maybe a month before I felt confident enough to make some bigger decisions than just like, okay, this is boomy or this is too bright. Vocal level was tricky because there's the mid-range here is a little bit more present. So
yeah,
I had to kind of keep bringing like CDs in that I kind of knew where the vocal level was correct, and then kind of listening. And that's kind of a trip too, because sometimes in your imagination you've heard something for so long, and then you realize in a studio situation that you thought you knew that, but you didn't. Listen to it at home, it was one thing. Listen to it in the studio, it's like, whoa, that's really a loud vocal, and I think that as I got comfortable, it was also good. I don't think I had any super challenging stuff, like in the beginning, no shootouts or any of that stuff,
Yeah.
And then the other thing that these speakers actually was a big advantage is that we talk about frequency response is one aspect of the whole thing, but the other thing is like dynamics, right? And because I'm in the middle, I'm about maybe 4.5, 5 feet away from the speakers, and I'm right in the middle, and they're really wide, super wide. So
you're closer than you were.
Much closer. I'm about I'd say 3 or 4 feet closer than I used to be.
Wow.
So because these are the drivers are bigger. So you really hear dynamics really clearly, and this has become like the major part of the job. People are sending us the mix and the loud mix. This is the thing. They have a mix, and then they have the mix that they send to the client, which is always through some plug-in, which maximizes the sound to the point where the client can hear it. John Agnello never does this. He just sends them the mix. And if they say it's too quiet, he says turn it up, and that's it. And he never gives me this bar. Stewart also doesn't do that. Some of the older engineers don't do that.
I never do that with anybody.
And you don't do it either, right? Willie stuff, you didn't do that with Willie.
No.
And that gives me the opportunity to kind of use my ear to try to get it to blend in a way that I think enhances it, right?
Yeah.
This is not what's happening lately. What's happening lately is, I'm going to throw a percentage at this, but with indie rock, it's almost 100% of the time. They send you the mix, and then they send you the loud mix. And the loud mix can be like too loud. And if you do a mastering and it's not as loud as the loud mix, they will always tell you that it doesn't sound exciting. Always. So what you need to do, you need to set your levels and your plugins so that your mix is just as loud, but take your plugins and take all your inputs and take everything that's happening and try to get more movement and more dynamics from that mix than they had on their loud mix. And sometimes they put some special sauce on their loud mix that they don't even tell you about. Like they have another whole equalizer chain that's not on the main mix, and now there's a whole bunch of. This happened to me on a record that came. I think it was a Brazilian record, and I don't know what this guy had, but he had something that I just couldn't get the top end anything like what he had, and I called him up and I said, I don't know what plugin that you used, because whatever highs you have on.
Wow.
You don't have those highs on the mix, but you have it on the loud one. He says, I ran it through the thing. It was some kind of air thing or something like that. I said, could you print that on the quiet mix for me? He says, sure, no problem. This is after I spent hours trying to get it. And then he printed that on the other mix, and then I was able to get the more dynamics. Usually I can get more dynamics and get people really happy. But a lot of times they send you only the really loud mix, in which case you just can't do it. You can't do anything relationally inside the mix because there's no headroom.
Well, once it's limited, it's limited. You can't, there's no undoing.
You can't do anything.
Yeah.
The worst case is when it's multiple producers, and some of the producers send the super loud mix, and some of them don't send the loud mix. But then you have to take the guy's mix, and you have to basically completely change it to fit in with the rest of the album, because if you make the loud ones lower, then the guy who mixed them loud is not going to be happy, and the artist is going to go like, what? It just happened 2 weeks ago. I had to bring one mix down, and it's like, and I got a call. Can you make it more exciting? This song sounded more exciting. I said, yeah, more exciting because it was 2 dB louder. But I can't.
Louder, yeah.
I can't put it in the album louder because it'll be louder than all that. So this is a whole different way of working than listening to something musically and figuring out, okay, well, I really would love it if that snare drum was had a little bit more of a pop, but that's going to make the vocal a little bit sharper, so I'm going to have to roll off a little in this. So there's like a sculptural aspect, which is completely to shit when you're doing this stuff. This is really different. This is a different thing, and all the guys.
This is recent. This is something that in the past 5 years
grown,
has become.
Yeah, definitely was not. It's like Uber. It wasn't that popular 5 or 6 years ago. This is a big change in the mastering thing. And it's not that much fun, truthfully. It takes to me, it takes the musicality away. It becomes less of an art and more of like a technical skill. I mean, there's certainly an artistic bent to it, but it just removes you a little bit from the musicality of the mix and more into the technical part of the mix. If I could describe it, that's how I would describe it for me. Yeah.
Well, and I know it's kind of like talking yourself out of a gig, but I would be tempted to say, look, if you like your loud version of this so much, then release it.
Oh, I've said that. I've said that.
You have.
I said, just use it. Yeah, just use it. I said, the sample rate is good. You know, there's no clipping. If you like it, use it. I said, I can't improve it. I've done that in albums where I go like the fourth song is exactly what you sent. I can't make it sound better from what you gave me. Okay, well we'll use that, and that does happen. You know, I don't really like to mention the names of projects, but you know, there's some major projects where I'll do a mastering, and 3 of the songs of the 10 will be their loud versions, and the other 7 will be mine, or it could be 5 and 5 where they're loud versions.
Interesting.
Yeah, because it's sometimes I can't get it to be any friendlier, which you know it's fine. It's fine when it sounds good. The problem is when it sounds shitty. And then you're trying to master it and trying to make other things that shouldn't be compressed have to be compressed in order to fit the rest of the stuff. So it's a lot of it's a lot of thinking, you know, a lot of strategizing, and also the politics of it. I mean, you don't want to criticize mixes that you don't want to be critical. If somebody asks you, it's fine, but you can't call up and go like, "Oh man, you crushed this one. Can you send me another one?" I don't work that way. I mean, decisions have already been made.
Right? Yeah,
people have sometimes already been paid. Everybody's good. And now all of a sudden you bring it over to Sterling, and the guy's bitching all the time that there's a problem, and you know that's not good business.
That's not a good look. That's right.
No.
And that's so interesting to me because it really does pen you in a little bit to have somebody basically doing a pseudo mastering job to hand to people. It amazes me that anybody would. Well, and the other thing, a really loud master, like if somebody hands you a loud version of a mix, and you're saying it's too loud. That means it's got to be screaming. And masters that loud, we're kind of back in some ways to original form, because if you put a master that loud and tried to make something that loud onto vinyl.
The vinyl that's another. See, this is something that we have to do now every once in a while. Sometimes we have an approved master, and then they want to cut vinyl.
Yeah,
and if they pushed really hard on the volume, if it's possible to do this, sometimes it's not possible. Sometimes we just call them and we say we're taking some of the level off, so we're gonna decrease the maximization, so we're gonna get more dynamics. And the explanation I give is always, they never argue with it. I say, like, if the dynamics that we've killed, once that goes to vinyl, it's just really not going to sound good, because the converter that it takes to make that analog again is not going to handle those peaks well, and we're going to have to back off. And everybody's okay with it, and we do. You know, when we have the opportunity, we do make a vinyl master, and that's what we do with the vinyl master. However, if all I have is the loud ones, I have no ability to make it quieter, because he'll bring it down on his console. It's becoming analog, but the D to A converter itself does not like to see those kind of super crushed loud. And I'm talking about loud. I mean, I'm talking about, I don't know, on VU meters like a plus 11 or something. You can't even see the meters moving. I mean, they're so loud. Even with I have like a 9 dB offset, and sometimes the meter is just all the way on the other side. And that was the approved one. And I had one recently, and I said, and when I talked to the mixer about it, he said, "You should have seen the roughs. He said the roughs were even louder. I had to match the roughs. So I said, okay, so somebody did a
that's
rough
the
mix,
worst.
threw like
That's the
12
worst.
dB of maximization
it's the
on it.
worst.
The band
Yeah.
always loves it because they're all excited. They're making an album. It's like, woohoo, we got an album. I can listen to it at home. So this is all, okay, so then the other thing in the last bunch of years, which is really crazy, is the streaming. And the fact that, like on Spotify, I mean, you go on Spotify on your phone, and unless you turn the maximization off, which is not an easy page to find, I mean, most regular people are not going to even think to look for it. But the maximization when you open Spotify is on. So everything comes down about 6 dB. Everything goes whoop all the way down. And so you make this super loud file. Now you have no dynamics thinking it's going to jump out. But what happens is it just gets all the way pushed down.
That's right.
And now you have no volume and no dynamics. So here's the problem. The problem is if you're working for a record company or a small record company, are you really going to ask them to make two masters, one for streaming and one for different streamers? There's a master. You have the master. And then from that point on, so what we try to do is we try to discourage the ultra loud stuff. I try to make it sound good at a loud level, but once we get above a certain threshold, it's going to sound not good.
Yeah.
But for the client to like be able to be happy with that after he's heard a louder one, it's a hard sell. It's a hard sell. I can do it with people that I know, but you get so many people who send stuff in here that you never meet, you never did meet, and you just hope they do good. Now my partner Steve Fallone is a fantastic engineer, and he has way more plugins than I have. He uses a whole bunch of stuff that I don't use, and he's a master at it, and he does really good. And he also
he's great. I've had records he mastered that
very good. I mean,
wonderful.
Yeah. Sometimes I come in and listen to something he did the day before, and I just go like, man, it's killing it, really. But he also have that same problem of having to match the loud one, and I get all the traffic of what comes in, all the emails that come in, and people call up a lot of times and they say, look, we lost the dynamics, or we lost the dynamics. Then you got the people call, can you make it louder? Can you make it louder? Can you make it louder? So I always like to think about this as an art.
Yeah.
But it's not really like an art. It becomes some other kind of trade that I can't even put my name on because I'm not expressing myself or my taste. I'm accommodating all kinds of weird moving parts, to try to kind of come up with a solution.
Even within that, you don't feel like you're bringing your, because I mean, I feel like you do when I get a record back from you that's mastered.
But you send me something which is good, and it's enough. There's enough room technically for it to be enhanced in a way that I can express how I want that to sound.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, it makes the creative window gets much tighter because there's a goal, and the goal is this level, and the goal is this.
So you're talking about with the loud, like here's the quiet version, here's the loud version.
Yeah, but this is a big. I'm telling you, it's what people doing, and you got that, and then you have this the streaming and the whole question about streaming. We get these calls. Every once in a while, somebody, I listened in a playlist and it was much quieter than the other song. And my answer to that was, put it in another playlist. I don't know what the song was before.
It hurts when I do this.
Yeah, don't do it.
Right, don't do that.
I think Spotify, when you take the maximization off, I think it sounds fine. I mean, I had Tidal sounds a little bit better.
Yeah.
But
totally.
their playlists are not as good. They're getting around the site. I mean, for some reason, the thing drives me crazy on Tidal is that it's like the shuffle is on. It normals to shuffle mode.
Yeah, no, that's not good. Yeah, that's not good.
I don't know how they get away with that. I mean, artists spend hours getting a good sequence and getting the gap.
I know.
And then it's like it's shuffle mode? Who the hell are you to shuffle somebody's? Who makes these decisions at these tech companies? It drives me absolutely berserk,
Not musicians.
Nope, that's for sure. So,
man, you are predominantly analog still.
Right now, I would say in my workflow, I'm probably 50-50, but a lot of the big decisions come from the digital side now. I mean, the colors, like the input comes from all the different ways I have of just getting getting the transfer out of the digital file. I mean, very rarely do we get analog tape, so that's kind of not even really worth talking about right now. It's just it just is 1% or something, right? No, but I mean, I take the signal path really seriously, and I try to get the one that maximizes the musicality of it. And once I do that, and just with EQ and everything, because all these plugins they all have a little bit of a different EQ curve to them.
Yeah.
Like the precision limiter is a kind of solid sounding, and the ozone is kind of airy sounding, and the ozone maximizer has a couple of different settings where could be a little bit airy or it could be a little bit solid. So all these decisions are kind of EQ decisions that are done later, building on what I created in the beginning of the input to the software.
Yeah, you're doing like your analog stuff, your broad strokes, and then even the limiting though is happening kind of post that stuff.
I'm always listening to the limiting, so I kind of get a ballpark to start. I have like a standard start.
Yeah.
So I have my standard start, and then I listen for a while. I go like, oh no, we're going to have a little different standard start, but it might change song to song. And then I kind of switch it around. And I won't be EQing at this point. I'll just be kind of doing it in conjunction with the picking the converter, the A to D and the D to A and the A to D converter. That's all kind of part of the analog side.
Really, so part of your mastering process is actually picking a combination of A to D and D to A converters.
That's how it all starts. I mean,
no kidding. Wow.
Yeah, because the two D to A converters, one is clear and open, and the bottom is kind of normal, and the other one has got a much bigger bottom, and it's also got a little bit more 400 cycles in the mids, so it's a more solid sound. So, so I kind of figure that one out, and then once I do that, then I check on the other side. I have two converters, and one of them is again open and airy and pretty flat. Yeah. And I just started about a month ago. I just started working with this new Neve, and then Neve has a completely other sound. So if I'm looking for that, so then you kind of weave together. So you have like even if you don't EQ, you have like 4 ways of just getting flat. And when the clients come in, they enjoy that, but if you have to do that all day long and go back and forth and change. So I try to come up with, I listen to all the songs first, and I try to say, okay, this is going to be pretty much standard all the way through, and then we work internally to the mix. But like a lot of times, if something needs a little bottom, I have the way of doing it digitally, and I have with the ozone EQ or the Fab Filter EQ, and then I'll shoot it out with my Soundtech and see if my Soundtech can do a little bit better on the bottom. Most of the time, the analog for bottom, the analog is better. And we just got this new box, which I'm only going to show you because it's so freaking whacked out. See, there's no frequencies on it.
You really got to use your ears, I guess.
There's no markings. Yeah, there's like a little sheet that comes with it. A cheat sheet, and you kind of get to know where everything is. And I've been using that, and that box has a definite sound if you go through it, and kind of clarifies the top end a little bit. So hardware and software together, and then try to get the work done.
If there's anything else that you got that you want to any like particularly cool projects or anything.
The projects that I'm having most fun with are things that I'm kind of involved more in the not in the mastering, but I have this one friend who she's a fantastic singer, and I keep waiting for her to record something over the last couple of years, and I called her up about two months ago. I said, what is going on? You got to do something really good. And she played me the beginnings of this song. It was fantastic. And I don't know, for some reason, what I said to her really motivated the whole project and started moving things forward much more quickly. And then she's been sending me mixes, and then the idea of what other instruments to put on it and all that kind of. I'm not a producer, but like it's funny because she would ask me like, well, what do you think we should add to this? I'm like, I'm not a producer. I don't know. I like some kind of a synth pad or something. I don't know. That's not what I do. I just know that when I listen to it, it sounds like a finished thing, or it doesn't sound finished.
Yeah, sure.
And she just sent me a final thing today where the guy who's mixing it, he did a really nice job. And so I've been involved with that, and then this other band thing. I kind of got involved with the Scala a little bit in terms of her approach, and I got a bass. I got a beautiful present from James Mastro.
I love James
and Shanahan. Yeah. They gave me a bass for Christmas, bass and a bass amp, and I've been taking bass lessons.
Oh, no kidding! Oh, yeah, fabulous.
And I've been listening to the bass. I mean, I always check bass out. I love creative bass parts, but now I've really been focusing on on bass parts, and then taking these lessons. And I've actually jammed with a couple of people, and this is kind of the next stage, music. Back to the music, less to the tech shit. So
yeah, excellent. No, that's
what we
excellent.
got.
And the Merkins.
And the Merkins. Oh, yeah. We'll be back. You haven't gotten rid of us yet. Tony wants to do it every time we get together. When are we going back in? It's such a weird feeling to not really ever sing.
Yeah.
And then although I did about 2 years ago, I did go to a singing class in Montclair in the autumn. And she had me singing like Italian songs, like "O Sole Mio," and stuff like that.
Yeah, no kidding.
But I heard my voice come out of me that I thought was like, "Who the hell is that coming out?" It was really funny. But when I go in the studio, I think I did really good. And then Stuart always goes like, "Yeah, do another one. Yeah, it was great. It was great." I said, "Yeah." Then I go back and I listen to it. I go like, "Oh, that's so bad. That's terrible." And he goes, "Oh, don't worry. So anyway, all fun.
No, it
should be fun, right?
Fun. It is. Well, that's right. Yeah, it should be.
Supposed to be.
It's supposed to be. Yeah.
This was great. Good to see you this way, and I'll good to see you in the next Merkins gig.
Yeah, right on, Greg.
All right. Take it easy, man.
Take it easy.
All right.
For more from Greg, check out his interview in Gear Club episode number 2. And for some of his John Lennon stories, listen to Gear Club episode number 88, available at gearclubpodcast.com or wherever you get your podcasts.